Okay, I'm next up. This is one of 2 times you'll see me. This is where I'm going to be talking about some of the projects that I've been involved in wrangling, and then later on I'll help open up the discussion for talking about possible collaborations at the system-wide level. So at the Institute, we're involved in doing, at least I've been involved in doing research and development, empirical studies, because we see games and virtual worlds as technology, media, and experience. Okay, so games are kind of cool in that regard. And we're interested in high-risk, adventuresome research, much like people I think are presenting today. And we've been involved in a number of projects. This is almost a game. Let's see. It's happening on the screen size here. Oh well, there's a full image here that's truncated, unfortunately. So this is a online science learning game environment that's targeted toward kids in elementary school. This is a web-based environment. You'll see over in these places. Oops, what's it doing here? It's not like come on. Okay. Stop that. Okay. In the upper left corner, you see that part of the idea was to introduce kids to these modern research ideas like collaboration and hyperwalls as something that kids as young as 5 years old could start playing with. Also in underserved communities and the like. So this is a system that was deployed for 7 years at a regional science center. In San Ana had about I think about close to 500,000 players over that lifetime. In contrast to kids, we did a project that focused on adult training situations, in this case for Intel Corporation, where we developed a game, actually a mod of Unreal Tournament, which was repurposed to support semiconductor fabrication operations, because companies like Intel have these big manufacturing facilities worldwide. They actually have over 50. That's a 3 million square foot facility that runs 24/7, 365, and builds the processors that most of you have in your labs. And they have because they run 24/7, they of course have staff training challenges, and one of the big challenges they have is dealing with material spills. If a clean room gets dirty, the way it gets dirty is usually through materials being spilled, and the way how they had traditionally trained people was an apprenticeship model of when a spill happens, we'll go out and take a look at it, which of course then is very circumstantial and the like. And because we had bought our game for $9 on eBay and showed that we could basically take these things like game mods and give them to every employee who has a laptop, that fundamentally changed the way how they invested in doing training. They then came back to us and asked about the problem of dealing with what are called personal protective environments. So you've recently heard about these things in the Ebola situation. It's again trying to creating games that focus on teaching people how to get dressed. It's kind of a bizarre idea, that everybody knows how to get dressed. Well, you do, but you don't when you're dealing with personal protective environments, and you have these protocols like where you sit, which leg you move when, which foot you put in first, and you find out that they have a 45-step procedure to do that. It takes 30 minutes to get dressed for a proper thing. Then you start to appreciate why Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man has a whole CGI infrastructure for gowning, kind of a thing. Much like Aditi, we've been doing some work with nonlinear displays, in this case spherical displays. These are science on a sphere systems. I don't know if people have seen that technology out of NOAA, but it's used for both planetary studies and global climate studies. So the problem is with these facilities, they typically cost about $100,000 to set up, as seen in the upper left. There are about 75 of these installed worldwide. They're networked together. They do sphere casting. And basically what we did is using sim technology that Krista Lopes talked about this morning. We repurposed and reproduced all of that so we can interoperate, take all of their data, put it up, and now we're doing things dealing with creating space debris fields for studies of things like near-Earth objects and small satellites. And like building a mission controls room. So we have done some work for the defense community, particularly in the area of command and control centers. These are facilities that typically take 8 years to design and build. The average cost of one is about $30 million. We created, actually taking those systems that we showed you before, the game-based systems, that just repurposed the content, because that's something that has been part of that discourse about the militarization of game technology, as sort of like the technology often affords those movements into and out of the militarization. So that's something that we wanted to play with. For our friends in the music section of the audience today, we've done a project. We just did a project recently for the San Francisco Symphony, where we created a informal classical music learning game environment that's been it's now hosted. It's been up for just about a year. As of last week, we're averaging about 2,000 students a week, 2,000 different students a week who are now discovering and playing with and performing with simulated musical instruments. This is an effort that was specifically designed for reaching and engaging underserved communities, underprivileged communities, where many of us may have already in early life had musical education experiences. I probably suspect about most of us have had a musical instrument, but if you think now of kids in urban inner city environments, getting a shiny instrument is something that just doesn't happen because they don't teach music in public schools anymore. So this is an effort to try to counteract that and balance that, so the whole effort is underwritten by the symphony. Also with collaborators like Robert Neidfer now at RPI. We've done things like game parodies. So we have a 2D side-scrolling parody of a game now called WTF, which is based on World of Warcraft, which now features characters like, you can't see because of the resolution, but Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, and Mary Daly, who act as now different kinds of guides to help sort of get people to think about, that conventional games have these very loaded social tropes and gender ideas and what have you, and it's like resource accumulation, and it's just sort of, rather than collecting resources, there's sort of a different model of social economies and the like. Moving on. We've done also with Robert a game that focused on gameplay being driven by real-time tweets, not created by us, but just ambient out in the world. So it's not an attempt to visualize news, but it's an attempt to say that there are recurring social situations like war zones and economic zones and stuff, so you can take like stock ticker tape data and set up games like Stock Invaders, where we have Microsoft versus Apple, you know, looking at stock prices to see who's like winning those games and like. So it's kind of this idea of having uncontrolled data streams coming into a game space to modulate.
5 minutes or?
Yep. So done stuff with platforms, with students, and very large scale environments. So I'll just stop there. And I should also mention we did some work for NSF, which created a report that some of the people in the room contributed to. We have this report available. It'll talk about things like why we should have full body games for health research and the like. And we have, of course, our obligatory Fantastic Voyage slide here because we have some work going on in neuroscience. So with that, I'll stop, and thank you for your attention and entertain any questions you may have quickly.